The most memorable Bond cars. James Bond has been an icon for 50 years. While the locales, suits, and gadgets play their part, Bond wouldn't be the super spy he is without the cars. We're going over the best, worst, and most all-around memorable vehicles in the James Bond franchise. 1962 Sunbeam Alpine. The Series 2 Sunbeam Alpine was one of the first cars that Bond drove in Dr. No. After being invited to the mountain apartment of enemy spy Miss Taro, Bond drove this beautiful car along a dusty road and into a trap. 1935 Bentley 3.5-liter. The Bentley 3.5-liter only showed up very briefly during From Russia with Love, but it's one of the coolest Bond cars ever. Unlike most of the other cars in Bond movies, this one isn't made for speed. It's pure style. 1963 Aston Martin DB5. The DB5 may be the car most synonymous with James Bond, and one of the most famous cars in film history. Bond drives a DB Mark III in the book, but the newer model was picked for an appearance in Goldfinger. 1967 Toyota 2000 GT. The Toyota 2000 GT is widely considered to be Japan's first supercar. It was the obvious car of choice for Bond during You Only Live Twice, which was primarily filmed in Japan. 1969 Mercury Cougar. The Cougar showed up in George Lazenby's sole outing as Bond in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. However, it actually wasn't Bond's car. It belonged to his future wife, Tracy DiVincenzo. 1971 Ford Mustang Mach 1. Diamonds Are Forever may not be the most fondly remembered Bond film, but the car chase that featured the Ford Mustang was one of the series' best. 1967 Lotus Esprit S1. The Esprit made it into The Spy Who Loved Me after Lotus dropped off a prototype with the production company. It's become a Bond classic, but its most famous moment, its transformation into a submarine, isn't exactly a standard feature. 1974 Hornet X hatchback. Lots of cars have shown up in Bond through the magic of product placement, and the Hornet from The Man with the Golden Gun is no exception. Gondola hovercraft. Let's talk about the hovering gondola from Moonraker. Depending on what you want out of your Bond flicks, this is either a fantastic ride or a symbol of everything wrong with the Roger Moore era. 1981 Citroën 2CV. Bond is forced to take Melina Havelock's Citroën 2CV after his Lotus Esprit Turbo explodes in The Spy Who Loved Me as the result of an overactive theft prevention system. 1983 Bajaj. Seeing Bond drive a motorized rickshaw was already funny, but seeing it take off like a rocket after firing up Q Branch's upgraded engine was even better. 1962 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud 2. While this car has a cameo in a parking lot in Thunderball, it didn't really take center stage until 20 years later in View to a Kill. 1999 BMW Z8. A BMW is not always the first thing to come to mind in the midst of James Bond's glorious successes. But the Z8 Roadster proved its mettle in the world is not enough. 2006 Aston Martin DBS V12. After decades of cars loaded with rocket launchers and cloaking devices, this car took a toned-down approach to match Daniel Craig's new approach to the role. 2015 Aston Martin DB10. The DB10 comes across as the ultimate Bond car because it was made specifically for Bond. With a strong V8 engine and a top speed of 190 miles per hour, the DB10 exemplified an exciting blend of old and new. Find out more on alot.com.